Hello and welcome to episode number 89 of the NerdProQuo podcast. Holy shit, has it been an ordeal trying to record this one. So we I will get into this with you folk cuz oh my god. Okay, there's two main things that I want to discuss on this goddamn podcast. But first I will get into the story of what fucking has been happening. Okay. So, I was attempting to record this as both an audio and a video podcast. I couldn't quite get things synced up. The audio part kept crashing. And then I realized that staring into a webcam, not only does it look horrible, do I look horrible, but trying to keep staring into the webcam so that you are continually engaged was horrible. I don't know how you YouTubers do it. I mean, I guess a lot of the people who I follow, they they don't use a webcam. They don't use the computer cam, which was what I was trying to use. And after about a minute and a half, I was like, I can't do this. I kept looking away. I was like, I have to keep eye contact with the camera, and I can't fucking do it. So only audio. The video of this quote unquote video will be going up tomorrow, like I did with the last podcast, at youtube.com/nerdproquo. There will be a link probably on the website, but just go if you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, which you should be because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up. There is going to be a quote unquote video that is going to be the audio with some video with some visual aids attached to it. But in the meantime, so there was that, first of all. And hopefully the second thing I'm going to tell you about what fucking happened doesn't happen again, because I recorded like 20 fucking minutes about 20 minutes ago, and then my fucking computer decided I'm going to crash and then restart myself in the middle of your recording. So that fucking happened. So which is why I'm dropping so many goddamn F-bombs right now, is because that fucking happened. So we're trying this again. Recording the audio for this. They will not be an audio. There will probably be a couple videos going up in the next week or so. Just short little web videos of me shooting myself. Basically tests. If you want to punish yourself and watch those, some of them might be fun. I'm probably going to be some comic book reviews in that. We'll see what happens because I'm going to be playing with this and posting some stuff. Not all of the stuff will probably stay up, so I will let you guys know when that stuff is going up, and you can view it and laugh at me or and write shitty things in the comments. It'll be fun. In any event, I'm sure those of you who are listening to this will probably, because I'm going to be getting into Ghostbusters, because that is the big thing, the second big thing that I'm going to talk about in this episode. And I'm sure there's going to be some people who are going to be a little pissed off about it. I don't know if any of them are actually listeners, but where I'm going to be posting this and, putting, people who are paying attention to the Ghostbusters stuff, I'm sure will be upset with me. So I'm looking forward to the negative comments. Yay. In the meantime, the quick plugs, Union Square Slam is this Tuesday at 7 p.m. It is moved to Tuesdays. It is the same time, the same price, same location, so it's 7 p.m. The Bureau of General Services, Queer Division. I now don't have to look at a little piece of paper because I've been doing these plugs every week for so long now that I actually know what it is. So it's the Bureau of General Services, Queer Division in the LGBT Community Center, which is this cool little bookstore in the Bureau of General Services Queer Division. That is at 210 West 13th Street, 208 West 13th Street, room 10, $5 cover. There's a free workshop at 6 p.m. Before that, I don't know who the feature is because they've been kind of shifting around, but I will probably be there slamming this Tuesday. I hope those of you who got a chance to make it out to WOWPS, I got a chance to make it after everything, to hang out with people, which was very cool. But I hope a lot of you, I know Justin was shooting a lot of it, so probably the next couple of weeks I'll be putting up some links so you can check out the poems that Justin shot for that. He didn't shoot it for us, but he was shooting it for MPS Incorporated. I think that's what it's called, which is actually I think it might be called Poetry Incorporated, which is the organization that runs all of the national poetry slam events, like the Women of the World Poetry Slam, which was this past week. I hope you got to make it out. I heard that there was a lot of awesome poems that went down. So yeah, there was that. So check that out this Tuesday, and of course every Friday there is still the Living Room Comedy Show. I'll probably start posting the lineups as like I had to coordinate with Luke and Abby, and oh my god, he was on this podcast, and I'm already drawing a blank on his name because I'm a terrible person with a terrible memory. But in any event, those are every Friday at 8 p.m. at the Postmark Cafe. That is 6th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue in Park Slope, Brooklyn. So there's that. So the first thing I wanted to get into, and hopefully my computer will not crash and restart itself this fucking time, is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. So any of you who are familiar with the original film, quote unquote the original film, the first film by Ang Lee, beautiful film, Oscar-winning foreign film. Uh, the one member of the cast who returns for this is Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh is amazing. This one is all in English and is directed by Yuen Ping. God, I'm probably horribly mispronouncing that name, but he Wen Wo Ping. Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm going to be yelled at by people who know this and know how to pronounce his name. It's fine. He did all the fight choreography for the original Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Also did all the fight choreography for all the Matrix film. A lot of wire work, a lot of wire fu. Awesome fight choreography. He directed this. This is a Netflix-only movie. I thought it was going to be a series. It was only a movie. That was kind of a disappointment because it does kind of end on a eh. So you have Michelle Yeoh speaking in English. Everyone is speaking in English. She is lovely. She's great in it. Her voice, I think, is amazing no matter what language she's speaking it in. There's something about, because I kind of pay attention to these things. I'm kind of a nerd about many things, but about this, about the tone and the timbre of someone's voice. Her voice is incredible. Her intonation, her speaking, like when no matter what she's doing, is amazing. Also, she's badass and gorgeous and still looks incredible. And she is the star of this, and she's great in it. Also, Donnie Yen is in it. I know many of you are a fan of from the Ip Man films. He's going to be in Rogue One. He's also in it. He speaks English. His character, spoiler. So if you saw the original, whatever, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Michelle Yeoh's character, when she is talking to Chow Yun Fat's character, Li Bu Bai, about her husband, who was also a warrior, who died, and he's the reason why their relationship is kind of fraught. Donnie Yen plays the guy who she thinks is dead, and he's actually not dead. He plays a character called Silent Wolf. They also bring in some other characters because they're trying to protect the sword, the Green Destiny. So they're trying to protect the sword. So the kind of sort of heroes organization, I guess you would call it, or warriors organization that Michelle Yeoh's character is part of, they go and they seek these other characters out. And they meet all these other characters. I forget what the names of their characters are because this was like 2 weeks ago now that I saw this. But that part is kind of cool. It definitely has a kind of old school 70s Shaw Brothers feel. That's one of the positive things. Michelle Yeoh is great in it. That's another positive thing about it. And the fight choreography, as you would expect, is great. It's beautiful. But unfortunately, that is it for the positives. And I think your enjoyment of this film depends on what you think you're going to like. Deadpool, oddly. Whether or not you enjoy this film depends on what you're expecting when you go into its Netflix. So you're watching it at home. If you're going in expecting, hey, a kind of silly, weirdly reminiscent of a Shaw Brothers. If you don't know who the Shaw Brothers are, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. They produced all these kung fu films that Jackie Chan was in the 70s. They were one of the largest studios in Hong Kong. Tarantino, very much influenced by them. In any event, this kind of has that feel to it. Unfortunately, because the production values are a lot higher, you end up expecting more, especially with a name like Roger and Dagger Hidden Dragon, how incredible the original film was. You end up expecting more and you don't get that. And I think a lot of that blame can be placed squarely on the director. I think Yao Ping is very good at directing fight sequences and action sequences and not so great at everything else. So character development is very low. I mean, you had potential, these great potential with all these kind of cool little warrior characters that Donnie Yen's character meets at this bar. So you have the potential for all these characters and this kind of you know kind of almost like Magnificent Seven or its original version, Seven Samurai kind of thing going on. You have the potential for it to be really fun and really good. The problem is that by the time you get to the end of the movie, and a lot of these characters start to die, you don't really care that they're dying because their characters haven't really been developed well enough that you care about them at all. And also, I think Young Ping didn't have a lot of experience, at least as far as I know, actually directing actors. So a lot of you have these actors. There's a couple people in it, by the way, at least two who could have played a amazing Iron Fist, like Asian Iron Fist. But that's neither here nor there, and we have gone over that one before. That being said, there was a couple like people in this who are actually good actors, but unfortunately aren't given any. I mean, there's some chemistry between the two youngest characters in it. That was kind of fun. The problem is that no one really gets to flex their muscles at all as actors. I think in my opinion, in this, and so that ends up being really disappointing. You have Jason Scott Lee playing the villain. If you are not familiar with Jason Scott Lee, he's been in a bunch of movies and television shows. Probably best known for playing Bruce Lee in Dragon the Bruce Lee story. He's great in that. He's not so great in this as the villain. A lot of people, I think, mostly people who have a kind of a subtext of Asian racism will probably say, well, the big problem with this is that they're all speaking English, not realizing that 3/4 of the actors in this are actually Asian American actors, with the exception of Donnie Yen and Michelle Yeoh. Also, not knowing that if you know anything about Michelle Yeoh or Donnie Yen, of course they speak fucking English, and they don't speak it with an accent at all because, this is a different generation of, these are international action stars in a sense. So, of course, like Michelle Yeoh speaks English with a kind of English accent, a tiny bit. It's so that really isn't the reason, in my opinion. I think it falls squarely on the director. So, in my opinion, with the exception of the fight sequences, this movie was kind of crap, honestly. Which some people might have been expecting because it was just like, well, it's a thing that shouldn't have really existed in the first place. I don't know why it went into production, whatever. So it's a Netflix film. I think if you're going into it, kind of expecting an old school kind of Shaw Brothers kung fu adventure film, you'll have fun with it. If you're expecting anything up to par with the quality of the original Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you're going to be massively disappointed by this movie because it's kind of crap in everything except fight sequences. So that's that, honestly, about that. So I will say, depending on what you want to see, you'll either enjoy this movie or be massively disappointed by it. Honestly, I found it pretty disappointing. Had some good elements, but mostly it was just like I came out of it going, okay, whatever. And because it's just a movie and not a miniseries or an ongoing series for Netflix, you end up at the end going, well, there's a potential maybe that things could get better, but because it's just a movie, you're like, oh, okay, that's all we get, so there's no room for it to get better. Oh, well, fuck. So that's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny. The other big thing that I want to get into, because I've been posting about it both through NerdProQuo and on my personal social media, is the Ghostbusters preview, particularly the absurd amount of hatred that's being thrown at it by YouTube commenters and just in general. And there is definitely the the massively sexist element to it, which is all the people who are just like, oh, all female cast, it's feminist propaganda, blah 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 blah. Putting that aside, because that's just dumb in fucking general for reasons that I will get into, and that most of those people are just dudes who are MRAs who are just fucking full of hate anyway. Putting that aside for a second, I you have this thing that I do want to get into of you have like overt sexism, and I'm forgetting what the term for it is. I'm sure it's just males being assholes basically towards women. There's a term for it that I'm drawing a blank on. It'll come to me in a second, and I'm sure people who notice the term are yelling at me right now. That being said, there's just something, anytime that there's this level of hate that's thrown towards a preview, also thrown towards actors, like people have been like really fucking saying horrible things to like Leslie Jones, which is super fucked up. Also not expected. It's just this level of just sexism and hate on the internet towards women that it's still, even now that Gamergate has kind of gone away, it still exists every time one of these things happens. So even though some of the criticisms of this preview are valid, and I will get into those in a moment, there's just something about the level of vitriol, and I have yet to see. There was maybe one or two, but I really have yet to see anyone who basically goes, "This preview sucks, we hate this, blah blah blah," who wasn't a dude. And anytime that there's a level of hate that is being thrown at something like this, or just a level of hate in general that's being thrown around, and that the gender of or the race, which 99% of the time ends up being white males, I always get suspicious. I'm always like, okay, so I know. I mean, you definitely have the element of never read the comments in YouTube for a lot of these videos where people are like reviewing the preview, which is a concept that I don't really get, but I'm doing it anyway. We're gonna be doing it next week with the new Civil War preview with Spider-Man in it, which I won't be getting into this episode because we're gonna be doing that next week. But of course, there were people who say horrible things in the comments, but leaving that aside, even people who in their criticisms of the preview weren't being sexist or hateful towards women, there's just something about it when everyone is one gender and generally one race criticizing something like this on this level, and all of it is one gender. I'm just like, okay. There's a difference between overt sexism and like undercurrent of sexism going through the entire culture. That every time there's this level of hate, I'm always like, some of that is sexism. Some of that is anti-feminist kind of, dudes just kind of hating on women. Even if they're not consciously doing it, you have to understand. And I know this is a thing that so many, even people who I am friends with or like know, get upset with this. And I will admit it to myself. Sometimes I bristle at it too. But I am more aware of it. Is you have to be conscious of there are things that permeate the culture, and whether you are consciously acting out on that, a thing like sexism, when you're reacting to a preview for a movie like this that has an all-female cast, has a female writer. You had the same thing kind of with Bridesmaids, and this is the same director. It always, I always go, well, that's there's still, even if what all these critics are saying isn't sexist, there seems to be an undercurrent of sexism to it, because of the level of hatred. That being said, there's also the other side of this, which is, and of course, this is an expression that is also majority largely only used by dudes, which is "you're raping my childhood," which is, it's just a horrible expression in its own right. But I think the longer I'm alive and am a nerd, the less tolerant or patient I am with that concept. Because it's just, okay, you can still go watch the original films and still enjoy the original films. I can still go. If this movie does end up sucking, and I don't necessarily think it will, just based on the preview, if it sucks and it flops, whatever, it doesn't ruin Ghostbusters 1 and 2. You can still see those movies and still enjoy them. I don't think it takes anything away from those films. I don't agree with the premise that a reboot or a sequel ends up ruining the original experience. You can still go have that original experience. The argument that, is it necessary? Oh, Hollywood is out of ideas. It's a reboot. It's a sequel. Okay, I will take that. I also take that with kind of a grain of salt, because a lot of times it kind of ends up smacking of elitism. But that being said, I will grant that. It was like, okay, yes, it means it's the money-making machine of Hollywood. Yeah, okay. That being said, I do think some things, I'm kind of excited about this movie. If for no other reason, you have Paul Feig, who I think is a great director. I loved Bridesmaids, however you may feel about that movie. I think Spy, I just saw Spy recently with Melissa McCarthy. Really underrated, really funny, really clever. Really, in my opinion, should have done a lot better in the theaters than it did. I think that movie didn't get enough credit for being as funny as it was. So I trust Paul Feig. I can't speak to how good or not good the writer is. I'm not familiar with the writer of the new Ghostbusters. It is a woman. That being said, the cast is fucking phenomenal. I don't know how you could argue against. It's just like, well, it's an all-female cast, blah, 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 blah. None of the original actors are in it. But it was like, yeah, but look at who you fucking got. You got fucking Kristen Wiig, who we all know is amazing, and if you don't know that she's amazing, you're a fucking idiot and an asshole and probably a sexist too. Leslie Jones, who's fucking hilarious and is great on SNL. Kate McKinnon, who I fucking love. Kate McKinnon is amazingly hilarious. Melissa McCarthy, I like her. Okay, I know people kind of fall either way on it. Chris Hemsworth is Chris Hemsworth. I'm putting that aside for now, because him as kind of playing the Janine character, I kind of don't feel one way or another about that. But you have this phenomenal cast, this phenomenal director. It has the potential to be really funny and a really great movie. I am, as I've said before, a little disappointed that they've essentially taking the characters from the original film and just reverse their sexes. You can see parallels. It's like, okay, Kristen Wiig is playing Egon. Kate McKinnon, even though she's playing an actual scientist in this, is playing the Venkman role. Melissa McCarthy is clearly playing the Ray role. Leslie Jones is clearly playing the Winston role. I think it would have been a little bit more interesting if they had switched that up a little bit more, but I understand why they're doing that. To address some of the other criticisms that have been thrown at this that I don't think are entirely valid, people arguing is like, well, they just picked a female cast, blah, 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 blah. You have to understand that, if you don't know this, a sequel to Ghostbusters 2 had been floating around since Ghostbusters 2. Even as late as 10 years, 5 to 10 years after Ghostbusters 2 came out. There were scripts floating around for Ghostbusters 3. The biggest stumbling block to all of those was always getting because all of the cast members went on to do other things. The biggest stumbling block, honestly, if you know anything about the history of this movie, was getting Bill Murray to be in it. So there's that. There was also reboot stuff, reboot with a new cast of male actors. One in which it was kind of a reboot slash sequel that had all male characters. There was actually a cast that was being thrown around for that. They were in preliminary talks. It was like Justin Long and a couple other people playing either new characters or children of the original actors. There was even a script floating around that had Bill Murray in it as Venkman, but dead as a ghost. That was floating around for a while. Here's the interesting thing. The last thing, and this was a couple years ago, mind you, that was floating around is that they had gotten all of the original cast together. They had a script. The way I understand it, and people can correct me on this if I am wrong, go ahead and yell at me, because a version of this podcast will be going up on YouTube with visual aids to the audio. Go ahead and comment on this if I'm wrong about this. But this script with the all-female cast was also floating around too, and was also in a kind of preliminary pre-production. Before this one got greenlighted and actually started to go into production, from what I understand, there was a version that had all of the original cast. They had finally gotten Bill Murray. He had kind of tentatively agreed, and there was a script that they all kind of liked. And then what happened was Harold Ramis died, which we were all very sad about. I was particularly hit hard about that because he was behind a lot of really funny movies. He was, in my opinion, him and Ivan Reitman, who is producing a new film, but co-produced and I believe I forget, Reitman, I think, directed the original two Ghostbusters, but Harold Ramis was also one of the producers and one of the two writers who were mainly behind the first two films. So, once Harold Ramis died, it really became impossible to have a movie that has all the original cast that was going to be a sequel to the original Ghostbusters, that was basically going to not be a reboot. That kind of died with Harold Ramis. Now, someone, when I was commenting on a lot of the YouTube reviews, it has said, well, then just why not leave the property alone? Okay, I think that's a semi-valid argument, to be fair. I think there is an argument to be made, is like, why have a reboot? Isn't it kind of disrespectful? Okay, once Harold Ramis is dead, why not just leave this property alone? I think that's a valid point. I'm not going to dispute that point. But I will say that, unfortunately, the way the machinery of Hollywood, I think that had already been a portion of money and everything, and Reitman had kind of already signed on as producer to whatever version of Ghostbusters was going to be made. Those wheels were already in motion, and this script was already out there with the all-female cast as a reboot around the same time that the script with the original cast was kind of being bandied about, that it might go into pre-production. This was also in pre-production. This was the other idea. So there was a lot of different versions of this movie that were kind of being bandied about in kind of pre-production. The studio, and I think Reitman, had already put some money into this. So those wheels were already in motion. And then once Harold Ramis died, it was like, okay, this is basically the best version of the movie that we can do. And so that's the one that went into production. To address some of the things I think are problems that I think are valid criticisms of the preview. The effects, I have mixed feelings about. A lot of people are saying that the new ghosts look really shitty. Why are they all day glowy? I gotta say, I do kind of agree with that. I don't know why they went with this weird day glowy, very neon version of the ghosts. I think as practical effects, they've mixed CGI with practical effects in this. I do agree that just the neon coloring, like if I understand it's a reboot, but there's certain things about the ghosts. And in spite of the fact that they were ghosts, they were very grounded in practical effects and very grounded just in general, color wise and all that, in the first and the second film that you don't have in this new preview. So I can take that criticism. I also had that criticism. I'm just like, okay, they don't look as terrible as everyone I think is making it out to be, but they do look pretty bad. I'm not going to debate with that. Number two, someone I didn't even really pay attention to this because I was kind of excited about it. We're just like, well, all of the jokes are kind of lame and fall completely flat in this new preview. Again, yeah, I can't dispute that. That's a valid criticism. Uh, is that all of the jokes in this, like, okay, they all, except for the one with Leslie Jones where she falls and she's like, I don't know if it's a race thing or a woman thing. All I know is I'm upset. That I actually did dig that. The international preview has more Chris Hemsworth, and there's like a little kind of joke where he designs the new logo, and it has these ghosts with these giant boobs. That was okay. That was okay, but I do say a lot of the jokes in the preview seem forced. I will say again, one of the valid criticisms of the preview is that a lot of it seems forced. That being said, I'm not ready or willing to write off the entire movie and just go, it's gonna suck, blah blah, all female cast. I'm not gonna flip out about it. I don't have the mental energy. I will say that the thing I did flip out about was just kind of like everyone kind of like flipping out just so negatively about this preview, and I was just like, well, I'm kind of excited. I don't know what the fuck you guys almost exclusively are so fucking upset about. It's just like, it's just a preview. It's one of the reasons why I rarely ever, even though we've done it a couple times on this podcast, like review previews. It's like, it's a fucking preview. Some of that shit probably, like, even the effects probably aren't completely done yet. And I don't understand, like, Paul Feig came out and was just like, well, fuck, basically saying fuck the haters. Like, yeah, like, fuck them. Like, honestly, it could still be a really funny, amazing movie. And I basically, like, I take some of the criticisms of the preview. I am going to watch it with a critical eye because I love the original two films. But I'm also, because Harold Ramis isn't involved, because it's a new cast, because it's a reboot, I'm not going in expecting the original films. I'm not expecting any of that. I mean, I get it, but I also don't get it. I don't think it's realistic to go in expecting the original films. I'm going in expecting, to see a fun new version of this with this really great cast and Paul Feig as the director. It could be great. There could still be things about it that sucked, but I really don't understand, and I'm really critical and suspicious of the level of hatred that's being thrown at this preview. I think there was other stuff I wanted to talk about, but really, I mean, this might be the longest fucking solo episode I've done so far. I had some comic book stuff. I had some, Blade of the Immortal is a thing I've been reading, but I'm not quite caught up on it. It's actually ending soon, so I am going to be talking about that on a later podcast because I believe Blade of the Immortal, it's Haruki Samura's samurai manga. I will get into the premise later, but that's wrapping up soon. It might have already wrapped up, so I'm going to be getting into that. The new Buffy arc, I will get into that, and the problems with that. Angel and Faith, also, I will get into that on a later episode. But this, I really wanted to just talk about Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, and to address the amount of, in my opinion, absurd hate that has been thrown at the Ghostbusters preview, which I am excited about. So if you're not excited about and you're like, this sucks, and you're flipping out about it, I think, number one, you need to fucking relax, and number two, I'm disagreeing with you, and you can go fuck yourself. Basically, we'll have to agree to disagree, and if you can't do that, you can yell at me in the comments. that's pretty much it for this episode. Next week we will be doing the Civil War preview and probably some other stuff, and also the Spider-Man cameo in a new thing. But in the meantime, try and relax. All right, all you male nerds out there, all you male white nerds out there, try and chill the fuck out.
For those of you who stuck around long enough to, at the end of this video, at the end of listening to this podcast, you now get to see my weird face. Okay, after reading a bunch of the responses and a couple other things, I still think everyone is making way too big of a deal about this preview, because it's only a fucking preview. That being said, I will say that this preview is guilty of many of the things that Sony has been guilty of in the past, is that it looks more like a product than it looks like a genuine movie. That, and I don't understand fucking neon brilliance. I don't understand why that's a thing. So, I am agreeing with you people who say the effects look really weird. I don't know why the ghosts are this weird neon glow stick thing. I don't know why they decided to go that direction. Whatever. Hopefully you can hear and both see this. It's a little add-on at the end for those of you who actually subscribe to the YouTube channel. So there's that. Yes, I am very skeptical. I am excited, but very skeptical that this movie, Ghostbusters, will be good. And that's it for that.